So I have this bowl of, ooh, that one popped out. So that must be the one I'm supposed to read. Let's see what it says. This one reads, "May I read more. May I read more as a sentiment of loving kindness. May I read more." Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. And for the month of April, we are exploring the fourth noble truth. And we are reimagining it. We're looking at it from a perspective that honors the original tradition and the original traditional language. But one of the things that I was doing in my own practice was I was really trying to take these ancient interpretations and see if I could find language or concepts or perspectives that felt more relevant to me, felt more modern, and something that I could really sit with. The fourth noble truth in Buddhism, as many of you already know, is a path, a way, concepts that really support awakening to the conditions of our lives that cause both discomfort and comfort. These are concepts that help support our exploration of the conditions that bring harmony into our lives, which is basically the understanding of these conditions. All of the conditions that stir up really non-virtuous qualities within each of us. Things like greed, dullness, hatred. We all possess these qualities as human beings. And at the same time, we also possess qualities of leniency, extraordinary kindness, selflessness, compassion, love, and how these seemingly opposing qualities work together to create a whole you. That is the practice. That is what we are exploring. And so there are 8 touch points in the fourth noble truth: the way out of suffering, the way to understand the misery that arises in my life. And how I've reimagined these concepts is to begin with the word be, be, such a simple word, to be. And to be is an invitation for mindfulness to arrive fully to this practice, fully to be exactly as you are in this moment. So, for instance, if you feel tired, that's your practice today. If you feel irritated, a little edgy in your body, a little twitchy, that's how you are going to be in your practice in this moment, and let that be. Maybe you're someone who aspires to be all Buddha-y, as a Sangha member used to say. What a great aspiration. I wonder what that means to you, to be Buddha-y. Something to explore. So the word be is a great place to just pause and be a little bit still and examine. And I've partnered these with a traditional language. So in the traditional Noble Eightfold Path, we begin with wise intention. In the reimagined Noble Eightfold Path, we begin with be curious. What called you in today? What are you seeking? To what do you aspire? What are the barriers that you face? What are the barriers you create? Be curious about all of it. And to be curious is to cultivate that inner observer, the one that can lean back a little bit and just watch this unfolding in wide open spaces. And so, in order to get to wise understanding, we need to cultivate and be spacious. We need to make room for everything. We need to have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. We need to get ourselves out of the box and put ourselves in a spacious place and state of mind to see more clearly. If not, our perspective is going to remain tight and limited. Wise speech and wise action come up next. And the qualities of being associated with wise action and wise speech are to be real and to be patient. Take that in for a minute. What does it mean to you to be real? What does it mean to you to be patient? Be curious if you notice hearing the words being patient and your first reaction is some inner dialogue that's saying, yeah, right, because you're so freaking impatient. Jeez, fascinating, isn't it? Would you look at that? Be curious. The Buddha knew long, long ago that to enact any of these concepts and qualities requires wisdom in our efforts. And I think there is nothing wiser in efforting than to learn to be present. Present not to all the things that should be, not to all the things we wish we were, but to be present to exactly how we are and how things are, how life is, and you in it. On the traditional Noble Eightfold Path, there's something called wise livelihood. And while this often refers to the job you do, there's a very specific teaching in some of the Buddha's sutras where there's a whole lot of encouragement to avoid professions that are associated with killing, for instance. But wise livelihood is so much more than just what you do to make a living. It's how do you live? And I like to think of my own life, my lifestyle, my way of life, as an opportunity for me to be whole. There are things about my life that are sometimes incongruent with my aspirations. So, for instance, I aspire to eat with a lot more nutrition, a lot more awareness. And that is just countered by the amount of sugar in my pantry. Not proud of that, not happy with that. And that is my life. That's what I'm working on. But I can't be whole if I pretend I don't see it, if I don't acknowledge it, if I don't use that quality of me, my habit energy around sugar, if I ignore that as the raw material for what causes me so much discomfort. It causes a lot of physical discomfort. It causes a lot of mental discomfort, spiritual discomfort. And that's what's alive for me. That's an aspect of what makes me whole and complex. What makes you whole? Can you be whole in your whole life? And then the Noble Eightfold Path concludes with the practice of sati, mindfulness, and then working with the mind, training the mind in concentration. I like to reimagine mindfulness and concentration as being kind and being new. And that last one, wise concentration, retranslated to be new, is a curious one, and I've kept it broad in its definition for myself because I don't want my effort around concentration to get fixed, which I can do. I want my concentration to have the conditions of stillness, presence, awareness, and on the edges of all of that, an element of surprise to maybe see something new, to see something on the edge of my awareness, on the edge of my vision, to catch my attention, maybe even break my fixated concentration to see something new. And that new thing has the capacity to change everything. Today, for our practice, I'd like to bring forward a challenge to an adage, a common saying. Two actually come alive for me. And the first is a saying that is actually violent because it's harsh and it's negative. It might be true, and it's definitely not the whole truth. So I'd like to challenge it. And that phrase is stinkin' thinkin'. It sounds good. It sounds funny. But my thinking, even if it's obsessive and neurotic, I don't want to treat it as something stinky or something putrid or gross or anything. It's simply my mind. I want to try to cultivate the conditions in my life where I can treat my thoughts with a little bit more neutrality. Because there's something there, even if the thoughts are negative, even if they're neurotic, even if they're obsessive, whatever they are, there's something there for me to learn. There's wisdom embedded there, which is hardly stinking. And the second phrase that I want to challenge is the monkey mind. Why is it a monkey? And it's a monkey because it jumps and it yips and it does all the things and it steals attention. And I get it. But when I think of monkey, I think of that clanging cymbal toy, that sort of creepy toy. And I also think of monkeys on leashes. And there's a negativity to it. And monkeys are amazing creatures. They're extraordinary beings. And so while they jump from here to there, while they seem untamable, my mind doesn't have to be akin to that. My mind can be something else. So I just want to present those challenges. I'm not looking for agreement or disagreement. I want you to have your own experience. And I want to challenge the propensity for the mind to get fixated. We hear monkey mind over and over and over and over and over again, and there's a groove that's built that we rarely challenge. And that's all I'm doing today is let's think of it in another way. And that other way is your mind is a garden. And maybe you have a story that you don't have a green thumb, that you kill everything you grow. And I would simply encourage you to just remind yourself, well, would you look at that? Maybe you've been growing the wrong things. Maybe the timing for your garden hasn't been quite right. We are all by nature stewards of the earth because we are of the earth. And so it is a very natural inclination to want to tend to and care for other life forms of earth. And maybe you yourself don't enjoy digging in the dirt or having a garden, but I would be willing to guess that you enjoy gardens, parks, natural landscapes. What if you could treat your own mind as one of these extraordinary landscapes? What do you see? My mind has the capacity to be incredibly majestic, like an ancient oak tree, textured, colorful, solid, steady. My mind also has the capacity to be a meadow, riot with color and activity, noisy, lots of movement, nothing still, flitting, flickering. My mind has the capacity to be solemn. And when I'm in a solemn state of mind, I think of sunflowers in the autumn and how they know in their stage of dying to bow to the earth. Be with your mind as it is. And see with your own capacity for mindfulness and concentration, if you can create a mind state, if you can create the conditions for your mind to flourish in places of beauty. When you're in that landscape, how do you nurture it? What do you need? Can you be curious? Can you be real and patient? Can you be present? Can you be spacious and whole? Look at all the life that's happening in this landscape and by extension in your own mind. Can you be kind? Friends, I'm presenting the fourth noble truth in this way because one of the things that is happening in recovery is the rediscovery and the recovery, the excavation of that Buddha nature, that brilliant, wise, incorruptible, loving, compassionate, joyful self buried under the weight of maladaptive coping, substance use, trauma, violence, neglect. And this noble way is an invitation to put down the hammers, the pickaxes, the jackhammers, and take out the quiet brushes, the gentle trowels, using your hands to gently unearth these qualities of you that are life giving, life sustaining, and profound. Enjoy this time in the garden of your mind. May you be enveloped by beauty and wonder. Friends, let's take a step toward the conclusion of this practice by doing a simple breathing meditation. Just an inhalation and an exhalation. Breathing in the subtle awareness of this noble eightfold path. Breathing out the subtle awareness of one's presence to it. Breathing in the ancientness of this noble way. Breathing out the light you bring to it in this modern time. Breathing in the Noble Eightfold Path. Breathing out, you, me, us, exactly as we are, walking it. All righty, friends. Recommendations. So, one of the things that is really helpful, particularly to get started with a healthy reading habit, is to buy magazines, Buddhist inspired magazines. So, I'd like to make a couple of recommendations. One is Lion's Roar. It's incredibly friendly, beginner friendly. It's highly accessible, and you'll find recommendations for other books and things like that. So Lion's Roar is a great one. Tricycle is another good one. This is a little bit more of a moderate reader, and somebody with a little bit more experience with Buddhism. It goes a little bit deeper in terms of the cultural traditions in Tricycle, so it's another really wonderful read. And then finally, if you want to really go into the cultural aspects of Buddhism, there's a much smaller magazine. I think it's printed 4 times a year is all, and it's called Buddha Dharma. And you can find these at all of them at Barnes and Noble and online as well. The other thing I would recommend, let me see if I can find it. When you go to the magazine section of Barnes and Noble, they often have magazines like this too. This is a health magazine, health special edition, Understanding Addiction. And so you can read little things like this. Incredible, incredible articles in here that really challenge the fixed mind that has been just sort of adopted this narrative that's been going on for decades. And contemporary science and understanding of modern addiction and addiction science is really changing some of those social narratives. So it is worth reading some of this stuff. Okay. And then last but not least, I would highly recommend the work of Thich Nhat Hanh. And Thich Nhat Hanh was a prolific writer of very accessible, readable books. And I would recommend all of them. I haven't read one that I haven't loved. Some are harder than others, but he has these small book series that are highly, highly valuable and so encouraging and really help the mind wake up and go beyond just the habit energy and look at what is my whole life. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead, friends, and end our practice today with a dedication of merit. And today I'd like to read the dedication of merit from the Recovery Dharma book. And I love this dedication. And I'm just going to read a few sentences. And I'm going to read it in a very specific way. Come into your body, friends. Close your eyes. And just take a moment to recognize the merit that has been acquired by simply showing up exactly as you are. The realization that your presence here has been a gift. And the presence of others is also a gift that we have been able to receive. And to shelter in all of this generosity is refuge. Refuge does not arise in a particular place. Refuge arises in the space within the goodness of our hearts. Refuge arises in the space within the goodness of our hearts. And when this space is imbued with wisdom, respect, love, I'm going to add trust and friendship. We call this Sangha. We hope that the pain of negative habit energy, the trauma, the distorted feelings of being apart actually lead us back toward the heart. So that understanding of compassion, wisdom, and change comes alive ever more deeply, ever more clearly. Friends, we each of us have everything we need for this self-discovery. And coming into community is like coming into a dazzling space of clear mirrors to help us see with more clarity, more joy, more beauty. Thank you for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful day, a beautiful afternoon and evening, wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next time. Namaste.